lookalike contests, CEO pew pewings, and drones across New Jersey. There's a lot going on, and I took a break from the internet for a week and I feel so behind. So let's talk about it, because I think these things, or at least the first two, are more connected than we may think. I'm back home for the holidays and actively moving apartments. So if you've been here before, the aesthetics, the production quality, and the background may be a little different than what we're used to. But we'll be back to normal soon enough. But if you have not been here before and this is the first time you're seeing me, hello, my name is Rumi, aka Imurgency. And if you like all things media analysis, pop culture, TV, whatever, what have you, essentially someone who likes to yap too much about very niche topics, then make sure to subscribe so you're not missing out on any of the content that comes out on this channel. Also, make sure to leave a like on this video and follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, because I just came back from Japan and posted all about it over there. So check that out at Imurgency. But to get in this video's topic, we need to talk about a couple of things. And I'm going to really need you to hold on and just walk with me with this one, because I'm going to try to explain to you how the celebrity lookalike contests that have been happening in New York and across the country, as well as how the Luigi Mangione CEO unaliving and subsequent trial are inherently related to each other, and in fact are responses to very similar issues. Now, like I said, walk with me, because on the surface this may seem like a giant stretch. This may seem like, Rumi, what are you talking about? I will get there. I will break it down. I hope it makes sense by the end. And I think that the thing that both of these events are responding to is capitalism, but more specifically, the late stage capitalism that we are currently in. And I guess to first start off, let's talk about what exactly is late stage capitalism. So capitalism generally isn't a new term for most people. I feel like they've heard it at one point or another, either in school, in life, or on social media. It's essentially the economic system that we currently live under in the United States. And based on the Google definition, capitalism is an economical and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. Essentially what gives private institutions and organizations freedom to own their own means of production, pricing, the products that they sell, and the distribution of said products based on competition in a free market. When it's working at its best, it is the concept of like having one company sell you a product for $8 and then another company wanting to compete with said other company, so they sell that same product or similar product for $7.50 to compete with the market and get you, the consumer, to purchase their product over the other company's product. But as we've seen, that doesn't always work in that direction or in that exact way, where it seems like nowadays the intention is not to get the best deal for the customer or to really generally compete for the customer's interest. Things have shifted more in the favor of these businesses over the consumer, over the employee, and over all else, really prioritizing the bottom line over anything else. It's why we've seen so many companies cut costs, drastically lower the quality of product, and in some more extreme cases, bypassing regulations and laws put in place to protect the consumer in order to get a product to the consumer, or creating a dependence for the consumer of a product to buy, so they really have no other choice but to use said product or have a much more inconvenient experience. And while I am no economist, and I never will claim to be so, that's a completely different wheelhouse, and one that deserves a lot of respect and patience, because wow, that's a lot. As someone with access to a Google search and just a teensy bit of research, this sort of leads us to the conversation about late stage capitalism. Now, late stage capitalism is a buzzy term. It's a term that people fling around a lot when they talk about capitalism, when they talk about the American and global economy, usually referring to the state that we're in now with the problems that I just discussed, and how it seems that this economic system is not necessarily sustainable for the average everyday person, with most people struggling to make ends meet, the uber wealthy getting even wealthier, and the poor getting poorer. But according to Sumbart's analysis, and Sumbart, if you are unfamiliar, is a rather controversial German historical economist. He's also allegedly the one that coined the term late capitalism, which referred to specifically the economic, political, and social deprivations associated with the aftermath of the First World War. We're really going through a history lesson here, folks, but again, hang on, we're getting somewhere. And in his analysis of capitalism, he broke it up into three parts: early, advanced, and late stages of capitalism. And some of the aspects of late capitalism that he wrote years and years ago may sound a little familiar to life right now. One of the aspects being globalization, explaining the way that capitalism is able to function on a global level across borders, leading to an increase in capital or money due to multinational corporations being able to exploit cheaper labor on a global level. Think if you've been tapped into different conversations, think about a lot of the pushback that Apple has been getting over their exploitation over the use and mining of cobalt in Congo. The US and honestly the world's dependence on China for cheap labor for manufacturing and production, things like that. Another aspect being extreme wealth inequality, i.e. prices of rent, groceries, the whole concept, like I mentioned, of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. And the next aspect being surveillance. Things like tracking user data and habits so that there are better and more effective ways to advertise to these consumers. For example, targeted TikTok, Instagram, or even YouTube ads. In my notes here, I have an extreme example of Target user tracking data figured out that a teenage girl was pregnant before she knew that she was pregnant and started sending her coupons for baby clothes and cribs. And a lot of that is related to things like cookies, and the sheer amount of data that was collected from our use of the internet and of social media apps that are used, collected, and sold to different companies and advertisers as a new form of surveillance to figure out how we buy, when we're going to buy, and what will drive us to buy things from these companies to continue to push the profit. In an account from a Marxist literary critic, Frederick Jameson, he describes late capitalism as being categorized by a globalized post-industrial economy where everything, not just material resources and products, but also immaterial dimensions such as the arts and lifestyle activities become commodified and consumable. And whether or not you agree with his beliefs or not, I think there is something to say, and there are some interesting parallels between what was said in that text back in 1991 and what we are seeing nowadays, with the majority of things in modern life right now being commodified. I made a couple of videos talking about how especially young people in Gen Z feel this pressure to commodify all of their hobbies and all of their interests to make profit, to make ends meet. The concept of finding a way to make your passions and your lifestyle, hobbies, interests outside of your traditional job a side hustle or a way to commodify or commercialize yourself being not the best thing for you emotionally and psychologically. Now, with all this knowledge, let's take a look at some of the things that have been going on in this country and in media recently. But before we do that, let's take a second to talk about this video sponsor. But now I want to talk about something that has to do with money that directly impacts your bank account every single month, and that is rent. Rent is the one bill that you can count on paying every single month on the month, but can somehow never really get anything back from paying it. And it really feels like everything else you pay off gets you points, but rent has always been something different. Well, until now with this video sponsor, Built. Built helps you earn points on one of your largest expenses, rent. Built is a loyalty program that lets you earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, and there's honestly so much that you can do with Built points. I've been partnering with Built for the past couple of months, and as a long-term renter myself, I'm constantly thinking about how I'm getting nothing back for the rent that I've been paying month after month. But now by paying my rent through Built, I'm able to get a little bit more of a bang for my buck. They've consistently been ranked the highest value points currency by the Points Guy in Bankrate, and they're designed to fit your everyday lifestyle. Again, Built lets you earn points on rent, and you can redeem those points towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, or even to your next month's rent. And my favorite part about all this is that there's no cost to join Built. And as a member, while yes, you're earning points on rent, you're also earning points on your everyday spending as well. And you could start earning points right now by clicking the link in my description or using the QR code on screen. And make sure to use my URL so they know that I sent you. Thanks so much, Built, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. It's time to talk about the lookalike contests. If you've been on the internet anytime since around like October, maybe, you would have seen these lookalike contests popping up around social media and in person, depending on what city you live in, where an organizer will hold an appearance contest for people to gather and vote on who looks the most like whatever designated celebrity is the poster child for the lookalike contest. The first celebrity lookalike contest was held this year on Sunday, October 27th in New York City in Washington Square Park. And this competition was actually organized by a YouTuber by the name of Anthony Poe. It was initially advertised on a series of posters around the city that featured a QR code that you could scan for information. And this lookalike contest is really the contest that spurred this whole trend. It was the infamous Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest, where all of your favorite Bushwick twinks gathered to see which one of them looked the most like Timothée Chalamet. And to everyone's surprise, Timothée Chalamet himself actually made an appearance at his own lookalike contest, which honestly, in my opinion, is what really started the trend and drew in the most crowd, because people began thinking like, oh, if we throw some more celebrity lookalike contests, will these celebrities show up? With a whole bunch of memes starting up online of people wanting to have their own lookalike contests at their own various locations, like, I don't know, say someone's bedroom in the dark with no others. But from this event, we saw a slew of other celebrity lookalike contests popping up worldwide, and some of these include, but are not limited to, Paul Mescal in Ireland, Harry Styles in London, Jeremy Allen White in Chicago. They even had some of Drake and even Bach from Wicked. That one was organized by TikToker Marley Brown due to her genuine hate for the character Bach, and organized a whole lookalike contest for Bach, but like specifically the Bach played by Ethan Slater in the movie Wicked. And the thing is, people genuinely show up for these things in droves. People are really excited to come out, participate, and partake in the subtle amusement of seeing people put themselves forward in an oftentimes comedic sense. I do want to say though, because I don't think I can talk about these lookalike contests without also mentioning how a lot of these lookalike contests are eerily similar to general ballroom culture, within ballroom having people walk different categories based on appearance, whether that be face, body, themed outfit, whatever, what have you. There really are some similarities there, and I do want to clock that just for a second. But more shockingly, or humorously, depending on how you view the situation, there was even a lookalike contest for the at the time unidentified unaliver of the United Healthcare CEO, who we now know as Luigi Mangione. And that's going to end up being a tie-in a little bit later in the video, so keep that in mind. But zooming farther out on the lookalike contest trend, as most of these trends do, they start out as very serious or seriously unserious, because let's be honest, who's going to a Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest being so dead ass like they want to look like Timothée Chalamet? I don't know. But as the trend has gone on, it's devolved even further further into just plain memery, as a lot of times the winners or finalists for these lookalike contests aren't even really trying to look like the people. They're just going to be funny or to recreate a certain meme of a celebrity or a character in a more humorous or ironic sense, as opposed to doing a more one-on-one recreation of the look.
I'm looking for Kai Cenat.
We got a surprise final entry.
But now that we have a common understanding of these lookalike contests, what's the appeal of these lookalike contests and why do they work? And / why do some of them not work? Like I said before, the real genuine appeal of these contests really took flight the second that Timothée Chalamet showed up to his own lookalike contest. And of course, we were going to show up to other lookalike contests hoping that their faves are going to show up. But I think the reason that why these continuously work and don't get generally weird, because when you think about it, the concept of it is kind of weird. I think they work because the celebrities for the most part of these lookalike contests are men. And there's a sort of nonsensical irony and humor behind having these men or male presenting people come forward in a sort of pageantry to compare looks and costuming, because typically and historically in society that has been something that has been done exclusively or more predominantly towards women. I think about beauty pageants or just society as a whole, like putting women out on a pedestal and comparing them against each other. Like that's unfortunately nothing new, and there's not really a commentary there. There's not really irony behind that. Like that's just our common reality. And that's why when we've seen the few lookalike contests that are of women like Zendaya, the vibes just aren't the same because the vibes get kind of weird. It's not a joke anymore. It's like who can look closest to this beautiful woman or these beautiful women. And the response to that is a less of a jokey joke sort of thing and more so a critique of these women's appearances, as opposed to when it is like a Jeremy Allen White. The sentiment is more funny jokey joke because it's inherently more unserious.
I don't care if everywhere you go, people confuse you with Zendaya. Do not attend the Zendaya lookalike contest. The Zendaya lookalike contest is going to be a humiliation ritual for light skins in the Bay Area. These lookalike contests have functioned as ways that we could identify people who are incredibly good looking, so good looking that they actually hold a candle to some of the biggest icons in our culture today. That means to be a serious contender at any of these lookalike contests is to say, I am good looking and I know it and I'm publicly proclaiming it. We treat men who believe themselves to be good looking very differently than we treat women who believe themselves to be good looking. I'm most concerned for young women who share features with Zendaya but don't look like Zendaya enough that they should be there, because those girls are going to get vilified. You can think I'm being dramatic, but remember that lady on Love is Blind who said, people tell me I look like Megan Fox? This woman who had light skin, dark hair, and light colored eyes? That sounds like Megan Fox on paper. Those are Megan Fox features. And they tore her to shreds for it. Additionally, if folks think you shouldn't feel pretty, that's a bad thing. I see women who describe themselves as knowing they are pretty. And I've seen so many of these women get torn apart on this internet for even thinking that about themselves. Stay home. Stay home.
And now to delve a little further into the sociological or deeper, more analytical reasons for why this trend may be taking off and continuing to take off in the way that it has, especially considering how cold it is outside. Like it is fall winter time and people are gathering outside for hours for these lookalike contests. There has to be another reason outside of just celebrity appeal for people showing up. And let's talk about why that is. People generally only go to two places completely for free, or for the most part for free, and that is work and home. And most places outside of these spaces require money, require some sort of fund, some sort of compensation or financial incentive to either attend, show up to, or be involved with. For example, coffee shops require you to buy a coffee and to sit at a table. And for sometimes in cafes or restaurants, you have a time limit for how long you can actually be there. And there are fewer and fewer just general open community spaces where people can gather, network, and connect in a way that is seemingly organic and low effort and low cost. This is the concept of third spaces. And if you've been familiar with this channel before, this is not a new topic. We've talked about third spaces and third places all the time, and specifically how important they are to finding connection and interacting with people in a non-work sense, and also how these third spaces have been going down and dwindling as time has gone on. Like the typical spaces where it could be low cost and low effort for people to gather around and connect, like things, for example, malls, a space where you can walk around and socialize with friends, where you don't have to purchase something. You can window shop, you can look around at the shops, but you're not forced to buy something to partake in or to be in that space. Also, in relation to dating, these third spaces are important, and that's why these lookalike contests are so important. important. They're giving space for people to gather around for a common interest and meet people for free. They're giving people that third space to find entertainment, to find diversion, and to find community, in a sense, for people that all like the same thing. And in relation to dating, which is already an issue for a lot of young people and a lot of Gen Z, it has become sort of a spot for that, because there are a number of people that attend these lookalike contests with the intention of finding a partner. Like, people will show up with their phone numbers on signs for some of the finalists, especially for contests revolving around their celebrity crush or favorite general celebrity. Like, again, y'all remember my video talking about the fall of third spaces and the lack of socialization being the reason why people are having a hard time finding dating partners? Well, this is a new way for that to potentially happen, and that is a potential pull for these contests. Now, another aspect of these lookalike contests that have been popping up in social media are the concept or question rather of these lookalike contests being a potential recession indicator. And that, again, moves us along the storyline here when we talk about how everything here is connected. Generally, these lookalike contests are really popular because they're funny and they're fun. They give people something to look forward to and serve as a sort of reminder that despite all the chaos and scariness that may be out in the world right now, that fun still exists, and there are places where people can get together and just have fun and sort of forget about the turmoil and the harsher things in people's day-to-day lives in a lighthearted way, which is not a bad thing. But I do have to wonder though whether these contests would be as popular as they were had, one, the outcome of the US election been different this year, and or two, if the country and the world were in a better place economically. And the reason why I say that is because these sort of free public entertainment spaces have some historical precedent, meaning we've seen things like this happen before as indicators of certain historical things to come. And let's talk about that. During the Great Depression, wow, that was a stark jump, huh? We're talking about lookalike contests now, all of a sudden Great Depression. Walk with me. Again, when we're talking about the concept of free public entertainment, during the Great Depression, there were things like public radio that were really popular during that time, which was a form of free public entertainment. There also were more events that were similar to these lookalike contests that were popular during that time that now kind of sound a little wild, but it would be what people would show up to. Like, there were competitions where people would dance until they dropped, where there was a chance to win a cash prize if they're the last people standing, that people would show up to and either participate in or just watch, with one article describing a different form of strange entertainment. Having dance marathons and flagpole sitting may have started in the 1920s, but the Great Depression has one very weird contest all to its own: goldfish swallowing. The contest started at a Harvard University in 1939 when some students bet a freshman $10 that he couldn't swallow a live fish. On March 3rd, the freshman filled the end of his bet by chewing and swallowing a whole live goldfish in the dining hall in front of a group of students and a reporter. And soon after that, Life magazine picked up the story, and students from across colleges began also swallowing goldfish as a form of challenge to see how many live goldfish you could swallow for some reason. The record was apparently 101, and I'm genuinely concerned for the goldfish population during this era because that sounds insane for multiple reasons. But the parallels here are interesting because both today's lookalike contests and the goldfish swallowing contest, the dancing contests, and other free public crazes at the time started off as small organized local things that initially began as some form of a joke that gained widespread traction and began getting replicated across the country. In a quote from a Vox article, historian and folklorist Matthew Algeo noted to Vox that such crazes historically spring up amid times of intense technological and social changes, the changes that necessarily create public anxiety and a longing for community and simple entertainment. It gives people a reason to get out their houses and share an experience with other people in real time and in real life. And I feel like that really resonates with the times that we are currently in, where everyone feels very uncertain, very anxious, and tensions really cannot be higher globally and socially. And this is really a time to have that sort of distraction. In my notes, you're looking for more historical precedent. Most, if not all, of the Google searches have something to do about ancient Rome, interestingly enough, with such forms of entertainment being things like gladiator matches and chariot races, saying that free entertainment at that time was so widespread because it was meant to distract people from their daily lives. At that time, poverty was rampant, and there was an extreme wealth inequality, and a large portion of the population was unemployed and needed free entertainment to keep them occupied. Again, not saying things are one-to-one, but things definitely do sound similar there. Also, I think it's really funny that Rome gets brought up in this conversation. The Roman Empire really does never leave us. And one last thing in my notes, sort of talking about why Rome ended up falling, essentially. It says here that the fall of Rome can be attributed to a number of reasons, but some of them are political instability, assassinations of emperors, and a declining economy due to the problems such as inflation and overspending. Again, not saying that there are one-to-one parallels here for everything, but it is important to draw these similarities and the issues that were faced back then and the ones that we are facing today under similar systems. And I think that this is a great segue into talking about the CEO unaliving, because I think, again, that these things are very related. And for those that get frustrated because I see y'all's comments, I will be saying unaliving just to avoid demonetization, censorship, whatever, what have you. So I'm sorry in advance if you hate hearing that word. Take it up with the social media platforms, not me. Again, if you have not paid attention to the news, on December 4th, 2024, at around 6:45 in the morning, the United Healthcare CEO, the CEO of the largest healthcare company in the United States, Brian Thompson, was shot and unalived in Midtown Manhattan on his way to attend the annual investors meeting for United Health Group, which is the parent company for United Healthcare. Thompson had previously received death threats before and was publicly criticized for his denial of health insurance claims. And depending on what side of the internet you were on that day, you saw one of two different responses or both. There has definitely been a large, widespread support of the unaliving, and specifically of the person who did it, with people saying that it was justified due to how many lives that United Healthcare has taken due to its policies and denials, with some saying that it was the CEO's negligence over the years finally catching up to him. Others on the internet expressed their condolences and immediately denounced the perpetrator, saying that this was too far, nothing about this was right, and that the person should be tried at the extent of the law for murder, and that despite who it is and despite what the case is wrong. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to things like this, whether it's justified or not, when people get angry, they tend to take things into their own hands. The French Revolution is one notable example of this, others just being general political unrest and uprising, and the public's general response to this is really telling for the direction that we may be heading, with the overwhelming response to the unaliving being approval, not the justification of an unaliving or of a killing, but of a collective grievance with the US healthcare system. The alleged suspect also ended up getting a bunch of acclaim and a bunch of attention. When the first pictures of the suspect were released and you just saw his smile, I knew the second that those hit the timeline that people were going to fangirl over him, and I was right. And when he eventually got ID'd as Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old Italian man, the internet broke into a frenzy because honestly, for the first time, a major case like this where threats of them are being thrown around, it is not a person of color, and in fact is just a white man, in fact a conventionally attractive white man. And that's what's making this whole thing so interesting, because a lot of the narratives that are typical of things like this, not that this is a typical thing, but a lot of the typical things when it comes to the justice system, when it comes to the types of people that are generally persecuted and tried for very public trials like this, we're seeing a lot of pushback and a lot of sympathy, because it's not who, level with me here, is typically thought to be a terrorist, a thug, a criminal. And seeing the justice system and seeing the public really grapple with that really does expose a lot of the prejudice and a lot of the racism in the system that people have been pretending it does not exist for the longest time. So as a Black person and person of color, it is really affirming to see that on display, because there is no hiding now. Like, you're scrambling right now and there is so much public support because it is not someone you can easily just discount or someone you can easily just label as a stereotype or as like a criminal. And there has been a lot of discourse online about whether or not the support and the martyrization essentially of Luigi, and because he is conventionally attractive. And I actually saw a good TikTok on this before, because people were seeing that as a bad thing, kind of calling out the inequities and the double standard that there is for people being accused of crime based on their race. And while yes, I do completely understand that that is a large factor, and if not the largest factor for why he's getting so much acclaim outside of the whole symbolism of what he allegedly did, I also would say that it's kind of a form of allyship, because people have been saying that white people should use their privilege for good and to advocate for spaces where people of color would not. And I would say this case would go very differently, very, very differently, had Luigi not been white. And this public outcry of support for Luigi, both from the general public and then also from people behind bars, from people that he is in jail with, speaks volumes to the general public sentiment around the healthcare system, around the state of the economy and the state of the world, and general public sentiment of people right now.
Luigi's taper fade is a signal to the correctional officers not to beat him up. It's a signal to the correctional officers that the other inmates care about him and have his back. And the politics of prison are that taper fade and threading that man's eyebrows were not about making him look good to the media. It was about sending a signal to the correctional officers that he is taken care of, that he is looked after, that he is not isolated alone and in lockup without any friends. If you have a lot of people who are locked up for a very long amount of time / the rest of their natural life, those people don't have a lot of incentive to behave. I guess we'll say. So the correctional officers understand that at any moment they could have a riot on their hands.
It just feels like people are generally fed up for being exploited and not feeling heard, valued, supported, or even cared for by people that have said that that was their intent from the get-go. And of course, as I mentioned before, as a result of this, there also were lookalike contests held for Luigi before and after the face reveal. And the way that this all happens to link up is crazy. And I think you can tell where I'm going with this. How is this all really connected? Because we've officially laid out all the pieces here. Let's talk about how this is all connected. I think we're currently living in a time where people are, one, lonelier than ever, but also more connected and in the know and knowledgeable and cognizant of what's going on than ever. And at the same time, just genuinely dissatisfied and in some cases disenfranchised by the systems that have been set up in the world. And we have become increasingly more aware that these systems and powers at be in the world do not necessarily serve us in the way that we would like. No matter what side you are on, no matter what your political beliefs are, the fundamental belief for either side of the political ideology, essentially whatever side you're on, you essentially believe that like your needs are not being met right now. The reason behind why those needs are not being met may be different depending on what you believe on, but the fundamental truth behind any ideology, wanting change or not, is that your current needs in the moment right now are not being met and you would like to see something different happen that is not currently happening right now. And I'd argue that a lot of that is due to the late stages of capitalism that we are currently under, where things that most people can agree on, like healthcare not being accessible or not fair for those that need it, is a genuine issue. And the reason why that is an issue is because a lot of times healthcare companies are looking more so for their financial benefit than your health benefit, causing this cycle of dissatisfaction, causing this cycle of suffering, essentially, of people. And while healthcare companies themselves might not be the entire reason for all of this economic dissatisfaction or the state that we are currently in, it definitely is a large part of it because it's something that impacts all of us. Like all of us have to deal with the healthcare system at some point in our lives. We're all going to get sick at one point. We're all going to have family members that are sick. We're all going to know someone that is in need of healthcare at some point in our lives. So it impacts all of us at one point. And I'd argue that the way that these things are all connected is that they are each different responses to the economic, political, and social situation that we all currently find ourselves in. Lookalike contests are essentially a fun in-person distraction from the world at large, from all the things that are going on that are stressing us out in our daily lives. We can leave all that behind and get together with a group of like-minded people that all like the same celebrity, all like the same character, what have you, for a period of time to really engage with that community and just have fun without having to worry about paying for anything or anything like that. It's similar to how people reacted in previous times of unrest or uncertainty. And the United Healthcare Unaliving is a more direct, but also much more violent response to the healthcare system and to corporate billionaires that have historically exploited and harmed the everyday person financially, physically, or mentally, and contributed to the systems that do not serve the average everyday person. And the public's general outcry and positive response to such an arguably gruesome thing happening just shows the collective frustration with these systems at B. So while one of these phenomena that are going on right now may seem like lighthearted fun, which it is, and while another is a more complex and darker issue, it's important to understand that these two things do not exist in a vacuum. Like, these are not two mutually exclusive events. And while they may not have started at the exact same time, I think they are both responses to a very similar, if not the same, set of issues. And one thing that I hope that I can get across to you in this video and just generally all of my videos is to try and be able to draw these connections, not in a conspiracy theory kind of way, because I think that is a little extreme, but more in a sociological pattern recognition kind of way, by having the understanding that most things tend to be related and do not exist in silos exclusive from each other. There has been precedent or past examples of political violence, public dissatisfaction with the uber wealthy, as well as general free and public amusement gathering as a sort of diversion across history. And while the times now may be different, the root of the problem, the root of the cause, the root of these issues that we are feeling in many cases are the same, but are just in a different font. So while I'll never be the one to tell you what to think, that's up to you, I do encourage you to not stop thinking and to never stop being curious and look into things a little bit deper yourself. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, y'all. That was a long yap session, but now I want to hear from you. What do you think about all of this? Have you attended a lookalike contest? / would you? And do you think there's any connection with the stuff that's going on with the whole Luigi situation? I'd love to know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, then definitely don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.